I'll actually just introduce Gurth. So Gurth Fernando is an enterprise manager at UCL Partners, an AHSN under the AHSN network, which looks at both early value assessment of innovations, supporting adoption, and he will tell you a bit more about his work subsequently. We also have on the panel today Oliver Hawkins. Oliver is a senior project manager at the Northeast London Cancer Alliance and takes care of innovation across multiple different pathways and multiple cancer types, which the Alliance caters to. He will talk more about their work and how they, as a Cancer Alliance, are looking at AI to solve for some of their pressing challenges. Our final panelist is Gil Carvalho from Sectra. He is a sales and contracts manager at Sectra, a fairly large global radiology IT systems venture, which has been playing a key role in early adoption of AI, and he will speak more about the work that Sectra is doing in the same. Welcome to the panel, all of you. I'll want to just kickstart by saying that NHS and global health systems across the world have been struggling with challenges of both capacity as well as high demand and workforce constraints. And collaboratively, a lot of us can bring value, efficiency, as well as better patient outcomes to the pathway. So hopefully there's something for everybody to learn here. To start off, Gurth, why don't you tell us a bit more about your role in the AHSN and more about UCL Partners and some of the work that you do?
Sure. Thanks for having me. So, like Surabhi said, I'm an enterprise manager and I work in the enterprise team at UCL Partners. So, UCL Partners is an academic health science network. So, we're one of 15 AHSNs across England. And essentially, we're partnership organizations. So we bring together academia, the NHS, and industry partners with the overall aim of speeding up and accelerating the adoption and spread of proven innovation. So that can ranging from the work that we've done in COVID, scaling up virtual wards and remote monitoring projects. To just the general work that we do with supporting industry. So as an enterprise manager and working in the enterprise team, we are sort of the front door to industry. So when companies such as Cure and others are looking to actually implement their services in the NHS and might need a bit of support, we help facilitate that. So we're very much a needs met organization. So generally how it works is that organizations in the NHS will come to us and say that they're looking for solutions in specific areas or that they have a problem to solve. We'll be moving sort of towards that problem-centered narrative a bit more, I think, as we progress with our new strategy. But we in turn we will then provide an insight into what the NHS would actually be asking for and shaping a company's value to meet the need of the NHS. The NHS is as a lot of people on the call will know, is a weird and wonderful place, and it's tricky at the best of times to get things moving. So we try to help facilitate those conversations as much as possible, and that work is funded primarily by the Office for Life Sciences. So that's sort of a standard offer that we have to industry. It's not paid from the industry partners themselves. So we remain sort of solution agnostic. We provide the same service to everybody we can. Not that Cure aren't brilliant partners to have in the work that we've already done. So in relation to the other bits and pieces that we do, there are national programs that we also support as part of the wider AHSN network. So we're a network of networks. So the idea is to have organizations across the country, different geographies. So we can in practice facilitate the spread of adoption. There's a lot that we could talk about in terms of the AHSN network. I will direct you all to our website, the AHSN network website, and also UCL Partners. We have our impact reports published annually. So for any particular project that you might have an interest in, you can get a lot of detail there. I'll stop there, Surabhi, unless you want me to take up more airtime.
Thank you so much, Gurth. That gives a fairly comprehensive picture of the work that the HSNs do, much more broad-based across healthcare, understanding the NHS demands, translating them back to innovators, and sort of playing the matchmaker to lead to successful adoption. Sort of narrowing down the field and vision a bit, coming to the Cancer Alliances, and over to you, Oliver. If you can tell us a little bit about your role within the Northeast London Cancer Alliance, what the Cancer Alliance looks at, what are the priority areas, and particularly how do you look at innovation?
Yeah, sure. Thanks for having me. So I'm Oliver. I'm one of the senior project managers at the Northeast London Cancer Alliance. We are a small group. We're an NHS group, barely an organization. We are facilitators at heart in that the Cancer Alliance itself is the organization, is a collection of everything in Northeast London, from the ICB to GP practices, community diagnostic centres, big hospitals, NHS trusts, and we are our mission essentially is to deliver on the core objectives laid out in the NHS long-term plans. So a big priorities for us are around reducing healthcare inequalities and treatment variation, also implementing best practice time pathways with a view to improving pickup rates, long-term survival rates, screening and awareness, and also looking at operational performance and how we might improve things there, and anything we can do to help standardize and transform and improve care pathways we get involved in, including looking at any innovations which we think would be of use, which would add value, which would improve care outcomes for patients, save us money over the long term. And did you want me to go into detail as to some of the things we're doing now, or is that a question for later?
I think that's a question for later, okay. Because I do want to give Gil a chance to sort of introduce himself, talk about Sectra and his role within the company, and what Sectra is doing within the radiology IT space, as well as specifically looking at AI.
Thank you, Surabi. So hi, everybody. I'm Gil. I'm a sales and contract manager here at Sectra. And for those who don't know Sectra, we're a PACS provider in the UK and globally. The company was founded about 45 years ago in Sweden. We started off doing secure transmissions. That's where the name comes from, Sectra. And we've taken that security background and security focus into the medical imaging side of things. We've got about 1,000 employees worldwide, about 2,000 installations all over the globe, about 100 of those in the UK. So in terms of AI, what we see ourselves as the facilitators of AI adoption, or one of the facilitators of AI adoption. So we try to bridge the gap between all of these AI vendors and the clinical users who have shown a need and a want for these AI applications. So through our platform, we try to bridge that gap and get those AI applications to the end users who are demanding them, essentially.
Thank you so much, Gil. I think we have a fairly diverse panel. So we have the AHSNs that look at the overall picture, the national goals in terms of healthcare, identifying the NHS needs. We have a Cancer Alliance that very specifically looks at a disease focus area, has more focus on the real world implementation and adoption and improving patient outcomes. And we have our radiology IT provider who is the facilitator for making all of this a reality. One interesting fact is that AI is still relatively new. While CAD has existed for a while, AI in clinical practice is still in early stages of adoption. And a frequent question is how do different stakeholders play a role in supporting this adoption and leading to longer term impact on the clinical pathways. So I'll throw this question to each of you. What role do you think the AHSNs can play in supporting AI adoption. And there have been several national programs. UK has been at the forefront of supporting AI at a national level with some of the large programs. So Gurth, if you can tell us a little bit about that.
It's a good question. I think the AHSNs as a whole, I mean, what we've always tried to do is find the best of the best, the solutions that work in reality, and helping them scale upwards. So whether that's through support in evaluation on projects, or whether generally that's just through finding what has worked in small subsets of the NHS and getting them to the right people in other areas. I think, like, the main thing is we're not providing sort of a seal of approval for anything really, but we are identifying what best practice looks like, what the general standards are for the space as it evolves, and helping the NHS really understand what they should be looking for in vendors. I think we're getting to the stage now where there are a lot of solutions out there for every single specialty and use case that you can think of, and a lot of them are in truth very good solutions. So it's just knowing which of the providers that we have worked with, which of them are working the best for the NHS, because I think you can work really well in a lab setting, you can work well in a controlled environment, but when you get into the chaos that is the NHS, how does that translate into reality? So we have really amazing AI systems and solutions, but we could have a PC that's made in 1999 that barely connects to the internet. So it's just how do they marry up to the real world, and also with not forgetting just the technology side of it, but staff as well. So the AHSNs, our employees are either ex-NHS or current NHS staff, so we have an understanding of what is actually really going on from a staff perspective. So when we have all of these new solutions that at face value can seem a bit scary at times, because there's sometimes a lack of understanding about how it works, or the role that it's going to play. Is it going to get rid of jobs? All these questions that come to mind. We can help answer those questions from the staff perspective as well. So it's a dual role really, I think, that we'll play both for industry and the NHS, as we always have done.
Yeah. So in some sense, you are sort of conducting the due diligence and supporting, you're doing innovation benchmarking, and you are helping build confidence of the clinicians and the partners that you advise in terms of what to look for in innovations and how to support that. Coming to you, Oliver, cancer has been a national priority for the NHS. It's also a domain wherein AI has started to show significant adoption and value across targeted lung health checks, and particularly screening programs, as well as the faster diagnosis, rapid diagnostic pathways. So those are two clear sort of programs that I see across all cancer alliances, including NEL. Where does AI fit into that, and what role do you think the cancer alliances can provide in supporting adoption of AI?
I think the advantage of being in the Cancer Alliance is we are perfectly placed in that we're in amongst the action, if you will. We're close to the stakeholders responsible for delivering the day-to-day, and we meet them regularly and support with things like management of the expert reference groups, where we promote good practice, sharing and learning, and look for any new innovations that can help us manage that high volume, low complexity work, which would be, trying to move away from, that consultant intensive management, where we can really mitigate, what's becoming a significant opportunity cost, and anything where we can save consultant time, we can, improve things overall and redirect that elsewhere. I think with sort of delivering AI, this was really something that came out from just an offhand conversation that we had with one of the lung physicians. And the advantage of being in my role, is that we do have the capacity and freedom to pursue things which we feel would add significant value, where clinicians or other stakeholders just do not have the capacity to do, because rightly so, they have much more pressing things to get on, like the day-to-day of looking after patients. And so we really are facilitators in trying to, bring the right people together. And we've been very fortunate in that we have some very good organizations that we can leverage expertise and experience from in UCLP. And also, we can dial into our support with existing providers that we had with obviously Sectra. Sorry, we're going to say something.
Yeah, I was going to say that sort of gives me a good segue into my question to Sectra. And we've heard from Gurth that about the role that the AHSNs play in terms of helping people understand or demystify AI, helping them figure out what their checklists need to be, do the due diligence around what to look for in solutions, and doing the benchmarking. We've heard from Oliver in terms of how to get the right set of stakeholders into one room, how to figure out the pressing challenges, how to actually support the early adoption after you've identified those problems, and actually have a very clear idea of what the impact needs to be, or like you said, the high volume, low complexity challenges, which are more about efficiency gains. Coming to a very critical question, which everybody talks about, and a lot of things get complicated the moment you proceed beyond that. You might have the best solution, you might have figured out the perfect use case. The next step comes towards implementing it. So the implementation comes with administrative work, legal work, contracts, as well as the actual IT integration pieces. So how do you think a player like Sectra can look at bringing value or bringing ease towards that adoption process?
So thank you for the question. So the way we've positioned ourselves is very much the way we see it is Oliver and the clinical people provide the why. Gurth and others provide the who and what to how to choose the AI applications. And I guess we're trying to provide the how. So how is this actually gonna happen? How is it gonna become from a plan to a reality? So what we try to do is we try to simplify the not only the procurement and the legal aspect of getting to these AI applications, which is one of the biggest challenges we see, but also the other side, the integration, the workflow, that is also key to us. So starting with the first one, because we know it's a challenge. Procurement is always a challenge. Frameworks, the public contracts regulation, all of that come into play to make getting to these AI companies, who are sometimes relatively new players in the market and are possibly not on any of the frameworks, etc. Just getting to them is quite difficult. So what we try to do is, via our amplifier services, we try to provide this package that is accessible within the existing contracts that our customers have with Sectra, so that they do not have to go out and go out on a separate procurement for these separate applications they're trying to get. They can access them through the amplifier services and through the existing agreements with Sectra. And then the other side of it, the integration side, is also something we include in our services, because all of the applications that we offer as part of the amplifier services are pre-integrated with Sectra and delivered from our cloud-based, secure, scalable platform. So you can start with a reasonably small number of studies to pilot the AI application of choice, and then scale up as you move into full production. So, and as Oliver said as well, the advantage of using Sectra or your radiology IT vendor as a partner is that we've got the expertise. We've delivered, for example, Cure a number of times, and so if you want to deliver Cure to your hospital again, then we've done it. We've worked with Cure previously. We've got a pre-integration with Cure, and we can deliver that to your hospital or your facility more quickly and more efficiently.
Thank you, Gil. I think the common themes that I'm hearing from all of you are the trust and confidence that comes in with having vetted solutions, whether that's through working with the HSN partners and hands-on experience, or being part of platforms of global companies that have come with their own reputation and credibility, as well as the drive and initiative from organizations like Cancer Alliances to bring everybody together and facilitate the early adoption. I do want to take some time to come to a specific example, because a lot of this has been discussed in theory a lot of times, that AI needs to get to commercialization. There have been a lot of pilots and grant funding and all the rest of it. But how do you actually commercialize AI? And all of us have collectively worked together on a successful example of what intensity of collaboration and motivation it takes to bring something like this to success across a large region. So I want to specifically talk about this Northeast London project, wherein the ICB, with support from the Cancer Alliance, is facilitating adoption of chest X-ray AI across the trusts in the region, and is doing this through the Sectra infrastructure, and with QXR, Cures Chest X-ray AI, they're looking at significantly impacting both the reporting efficiency and supporting the workforce, as well as the targeted impact on the lung cancer pathway and national goals. So I want to speak a little bit with each of you in terms of what was the role that your respective organizations played. This time I'll start off with you, Oliver, since the Northeast London Cancer Alliance sort of drove this whole initiative. How did you go about doing it?
Well, fortunately, it's interesting when you talk to people in Northeast London, particularly doctors, are very knowledgeable of AI and very, very supportive of it. They understand, they've read a lot of studies, so they understand the benefit that it can have on our care pathways. They just don't have the capacity in which to, dedicate the time that's needed in order to implement it, or not sure how to go about it. And being in our position, we are fortunate in that if there is something that we can demonstrate that we can improve outcomes, that we can monetize savings. If it saves time, then we can monetize that, we can prove it, so that's something. Then we will fund it for a period of time. And so for us, really, it's been about, this is a clinically led project, and the doctors have been instrumental to it. But crucially also is the involvement of the reporting radiographers, and that's good to know, because if you understand how our pathways work in Northeast London at BHR, the hospital that we started with, 70% of our reporting activity is undertaken by reporting radiographers. So it's very important to understand their view and what their needs are and how they work. And Homerton is another one of our trusts which will come into the fray in due course. They'll have a probably staggered entry into this project because they haven't quite got Sectra up and running yet. But they also have a big reporting radiographer workforce. And so understanding those points and those perspectives, and also how AI can complement what they do, is crucial. I think if we were to do things differently next time around, I'd say the things that we can do concurrently. Early on, we involved the digital team sooner rather than later. So that's the systems leads, bring in IT and PACS, and also a little bit about IG, because the advantage of going with through the amplifier like Sectra, the advantage there is that the IG is already done and dusted for you, and so it's not quite a plug and play situation, but it's pretty close. Versus direct integration, which can be a bit more tricky. There's also the legal and contract implications, which are very important to get started, because even though there's going to be no transfer of money or cross-charging in the first instance, because the Alliance, our purpose is we pump prime for a period of time to prove that concept. That's what we do, and then use that data in which we can, for the business planning for the long-term sustainability. I think equally, with the success of these things, it's very important to think about the long-term sustainability And I've talked a little bit, mentioned, sort of touched on, monetizing the savings and mitigating the opportunity cost, releasing time from doctors from reporting radiographers. And if we can prove that and evaluate that, those KPIs are going to be our key metrics, really saying there's something to this. We can save a lot of time, a lot of money, and working up that business case, even though it's not going to be submitted ahead of time, working it up is crucial, I think, to getting something like this funded. Because as an alliance, we do want to fund things and prove a concept, but we don't want to do it if we haven't got an idea how it's going to be sustained in the long term. It's not good for us, it's not good for our patients. And so thinking about that early on, I think that's something which is crucial to the success of getting something like this off the ground. It's what we need for buy-in, both internally and at trust level as well. Was there another question, or have I covered that?
You covered that wonderfully, and I'm going to come to you, Gil, because a lot of what Oliver mentioned did have to do with the less glamorous, bit more necessary pieces of IT, IG, contracting. That's where a lot of time and effort goes, and even if you have clinician buy-in, that's where the complexity comes in, of being able to translate the value of AI to the more administrative and commercial functions, both of which Oliver covered. So I wanted to understand from you, for this particular project, what was sort of the value that was coming in from Sectra. Of course, there was the clinical part of it, that you had assessed solutions that were on your platform. But what else helped with sort of speed up the adoption and make it more sustainable for a larger regional project?
Yeah. So, I think Oliver touched on all the key points in terms of contracting for the region. As it happens, Sectra is the PACS provider for the three major trusts in the region, for Barts Health, BHRED, and Homerton, which is still in deployment, but hopefully live very soon. So it naturally that makes it all a lot simpler, because each and every one of these trusts can access amplifier services and utilize the AI applications pre-integrated with the PACS. And I think this is one of the key points I wanted to touch on as well, is in terms of, and I think it's touching on a question that's just been asked as well, which is to do with the way that these results are presented to the end users as well. And we feel like Sectra have had a vision from the start of a unified application, a unified workspace. So from the very beginning, when we've introduced mammography to PACS, we wanted to introduce it, and did introduce it, as a single unified workspace where you could see radiology and mammography side by side. And fast forward 30 odd years now, we're carrying that on with now pathology and now AI as well. So we feel it's key for the success of AI that it is embedded in your workflows. There's no need to jump into a different screen or a different tool or platform to view those results. We want them to be almost invisible to the end user, kind of a helping hand in the background. So that is also another thing with our pre-integrations. That's another big focus of ours, is to ensure those results are delivered to you, whether it be via work list prioritization or overlays in your images, or what have you, depending on the chosen AI application. But we want to make sure those results are delivered to you in the most efficient way within the same workspace. And I guess from the legal perspective, what we've done at Northeast London is quite simply, as Oliver said, the IG side of things is reasonably straightforward, because you would expect you to have a data processing agreement with your radiology IT provider. We certainly do with our customers, and we have then data processing agreements with our curated AI vendors as well. So most of that legwork is done ahead of time. So it's a matter of only choosing the preferred AI application and delivering it. So it does make it simple.
Perfect. Thanks a lot for that comprehensive overview of how imaging and imaging AI in the clinical work lists, radiology work lists work in how that makes it easy for, from an adoption point, even for the end users who are not really drastically changing how they do their clinical routine work. Gurth, I think I want to come to you and ask you more in terms of, there is a project that's now successful. UCL Partners has played a role in terms of acting as a facilitator and an evaluator in some sense. The AHSN network also has a focus on scaling, right? Oliver talked about sustainability and building business cases. How do you see AI scaling up, and what do you think would be sort of the potential, and how do we work towards dissemination once you have successful projects and impact showcased?
It's a very, very big question, I think, in terms of, I guess, from projects like these and the other projects that we're involved with, having those case studies kind of ready to go with demonstrable impact in a real world setting is, I think, the only way that you can get things going in the NHS. It's like what I was mentioning before, like an RCT is great and it has its obvious place in academia, but the NHS works very differently. Because of things with workforce, etc., that we need to take into consideration of. And I guess the AHSN network, we're very good at shouting out about what works. So whether that's through sharing best practice, case studies, etc., to our partners, that can really help facilitate the conversations as they progress. And it was part of the question how I think it's going to progress. Well, that I think is with colleagues at Sectra, etc. I think you'll see that as we go, more solutions probably being adopted across the NHS, whether that's going to be individual solutions or specific specialties. I guess that remains to be seen, but in some form it's going to come up. And I think now it's actually maybe not even just in clinical settings. I think it's probably going to go into administrative tasks and cost savings in that way as well. And also I think probably the improvement of integration and interoperability. So I think as we've seen, like IG bows to no human, and we can probably put that on our gravestones at this point because of how tricky it can be to get things across the finish line. So I think that whole process is likely going to improve as we go. Regulation as well, I think, is probably going to be a big one. I think the UK in particular, I think where the government approach is to now rely on the existing bodies at work who regulate medical devices, etc., to manage AI regulation as well. But I think there's probably going to be some kind of framework somewhere that's going to be the sort of the, hopefully not, but maybe the be all end all of how AI is going to work. And I think finally, probably the biggest one, to be honest, I think is probably the talent that is there in the NHS, and just surrounding AI. Because I think at the moment, especially in North East London, we were lucky to have clinicians embedded in the system who had an understanding, who had an awareness, and also the willingness to adopt AI. I don't know that is the case across the NHS at this point in time. So I think as we go, staff, the workforce, whether it's through PGE or just general education, will have that increased awareness and the ability to integrate that into their systems without necessarily feeling like it's a burden on their workflows. And I think that's going to come down to the companies as well, to make sure that they work in a way that isn't a challenge to how they actually do work in reality, and have an appreciation of what that looks like in a real world setting. But yeah, there's a massive potential here, I think, and the UK is probably a really, really good place for AI.
Actually, it is quite an interesting ecosystem because you have the knowledge base, you have the innovators and the early adopters, clinical champions within the ecosystem. You have people within the healthcare system who understand technology, innovation, even AI fairly well, who have played that role. And it is still a majority publicly funded healthcare system. So you have all the pressing challenges that would be replicated maybe in a much more severe manner, but would be replicable across the world. whether it's in terms of improving diagnostic pathways, faster diagnosis, faster treatment, supporting the workforce, all the rest of it. So it would be interesting to see how the ecosystem plays out. I am going to open the floor for questions to our panelists. Please feel free to type them in the chat. I know we have one question already, so I'm going to just start off with that. I know Gil, you answered that at a high level, but if anybody else wants to sort of add to it. The question was, is there a standard in how AI results are presented back? Example, work list for radiologists to check, or add an image with markers and results, or an extra study. Maybe I know Gil has taken a shot at it. I can try and break it down into, currently, I think within radiology, there are 3 value drivers for workflow. One is your prioritization, which basically means whatever is abnormal or critical, high priority, time sensitive comes to the top of your work list and leads to faster responsiveness or faster decision making for the critical scans. The second is in terms of the secondary capture or the second image that you mentioned, which is where the quality assurance aspect sits, that it's the second set of eyes to make sure things don't get missed out. And the last one, which Sectra has, and with that I will throw this to you, Gil, is the reporting, the audit, recording discordances, the quality assurance piece of it. Anything I missed, Gil, that you want to sort of talk about?
No, not at all. I think the key message is that we feel is important is that it is very possible, and I'm sure within the AI space you'll have all flavors of things being returned from the AI applications. I think the key factor is that it needs to be embedded within your workflow. So if it's a work list prioritization, for instance, it needs to be the work list the users are, the reporting work list you guys use every day that has an extra column or an extra sorting field or something additional that enhances your workflow, not a different work list that you'd have to check for the AI results. It needs to be that's our feeling towards it, but it needs to be as seamless and as transparent to it as possible to enhance those efficiencies and to ensure that people don't have to, change the way they work. It just takes it to that next level and makes it better.
Yeah. As seamless as possible. So AI is just running in the background, and you're getting value without it being disruptive. That's wonderfully put, Gil.
Exactly.
Any other questions from the audience? You can type it in the chat. Okay, I have another one, which is, so if AI is integrated in PACS, but you use a RIS to drive your workflow, how do you integrate this? PACS does not talk to RIS. Gil, I think this one is also for you.
Yeah. So it does. You're right. It very much does depend on where your reporting is being driven from. So on some of the we have PACS-based reporting, and that's one of the things we believe. I know it can be controversial, but we do believe PACS-based reporting tends to be more efficient in terms of having one less application that you have to switch and flick through. We have seen AI applications being integrated directly into RIS as well to maximize those efficiencies. In terms of workflow, so let's say, for example, the work list-based example we were giving, in this case, you'd want that, I guess, within your RIS if you have a RIS-based workflow, and you'd look at the PACS for the image type results instead. But if we were talking about a PACS-based reporting workflow, then that work list prioritization would live in PACS. So, our goal here at Sectra is, regardless of your workflow type, we want to maximize your efficiency. So if you've got a RIS-based workflow, then we wouldn't be recommending prioritizing a work list in PACS, because then we're back to that switching that we talked about.
In fact, I'll maybe just take a moment to add, most of the AI vendors today are trying to work towards that interoperability. So there would be outputs, like Gil mentioned, which are pushed out by the AI, and basis your workflow, they could sit into or fit into whatever your current workflow is. So if you're reporting in the RIS, your triage or your flags would sit in the RIS work list. If you're reporting on packs, the flags would sit on your packs work list. The idea is to get you to open the actionable items first and enable better or more optimized diagnostic pathways. And then, of course, the rest of the DICOM, secondary capture, all the rest of it will always sit in packs.
Yeah, and just because I feel that I may have missed, even if you're getting through these or to these amplifier services via the pack, it doesn't mean that we couldn't necessarily send a message to the RIS as well. So what we're trying to do is maximize your efficiencies regardless of how you work. So even if you come to us to facilitate the adoption of these AI platforms, we can still facilitate those messages being sent to the RIS or tailor them specifically to your specific workflows.
Thanks, Gil. Any questions for Gurth, Oliver? Questions around cancer alliances, AHSN, how to support your adoption of AI? While we wait for the questions, I am going to ask all of you for a final note or comment from your end in terms of how do you, of course, the imaging AI and AI in healthcare in general has evolved quite rapidly over the last 3 to 4 years. We see that post-COVID, generally the digitization in healthcare has seen quite an uptick. What would be your vision for the next 3 years? What would you want to see happen in the ecosystem and landscape? I know this is the big vision question, so be as audacious and ambitious as you want.
That one. I'd say like one of the biggest ones will be a more concrete understanding about the ethics and the wider impact of AI. Because I feel like that is still not necessarily an unknown, but it's a question that's coming up time and time again. And I think we'll probably have answers to that as we progress. I think there will be more partnerships in place between vendors and the NHS, and an understanding of how to continually improve those partnerships, but also the product. I think the NHS oftentimes has been guilty of sort of relying on the incumbent systems and just keeping them for eternity and not necessarily getting the benefit that they may have when they were first implemented. So I think this is probably going to be something that's just evolving over time as we see AI evolving and understanding what the benefits that we are going to improve from. I don't think we've even seen half the benefits that we could probably get from these systems that we have yet. Yeah, and I touched on it before, probably an increased emphasis on regulation and understanding of best practice, what we should be looking for, and a better view about how this is going to impact staff going forward.
That's actually a very important point, because now we have seen bodies like the RCR, BIR, NICE, all sort of particularly focusing on AI in healthcare, how to drive adoption, how to sort of regulate what evidence is needed, how to build guidelines, how to train people on AI. So we'll see the ecosystem maturing quite a bit, and it would take all the different stakeholders to come together and build the bigger picture. Thanks a lot for that, Gurth. Oliver, do you want to take this the same question? How do you see the ecosystem evolving, or how would you want to see the ecosystem evolving in the next 3 years?
Yeah, I would echo Gurth's points, but if I were to take a more sort of NEL lens on this, I think this is obviously something that we don't want to be fleeting. It's not something that we're dipping our toe in. We really want to see this deployment and through, and we want to see it's scaled up and successful long term, this is something that we want to ensure continuity of care here, and thinking about, how we do that in the long term. It's not just chest X-ray. In cancer pathways, we're thinking, how do we get this into the CDC program? Because then it's everywhere, and it's in every pathway, expanding to cross-sectional imaging and the emergency care side of things. And when it's, because in order for it to ensure the guarantee the longevity of this, it's got to be something which is standardized across the board, so there's no variation, that everybody has the right access to it. And our approach is, if we can demonstrate that it saves lives and that it improves efficiency and saves money, the question is no longer how do we do it? The question becomes, how do we justify not doing it?
Yeah, that's a really good point. It needs to get to the stage where it's a no-brainer to scale and adopt. Gil, same question for you. How do you see the ecosystem evolving, or what would you want to see from maybe on this panel in 3 years?
Yeah, so I completely agree with both. I think one of the things we'll start seeing, hopefully, in the short term is a faster time to adoption. So that, from request to implementation, all of these things are going to start to be less of uncharted territory, and people are going to start being more open to, running pilots, trying new things, and supported by evidence and outcome-based evidence from the platform itself as well. So I feel like the cycle is going to speed up quite a bit within the next couple of years, and hopefully it'll become something that everybody in some way, shape, or form, in the way that fits them, will have access to and be involved in. We do feel like this is something that will be widespread within the next 3 years.
That's a really good note to sort of wrap up this session in. And of course, a lot of what we talked about today is going to be available for experiencing hands-on at UKIO. So you would be able to get meetings or get demos from all the AI platform providers. You would have projects funded and supported by the AHSN network within AI, who has supported quite a lot of AI innovation over the last few years. You would also get to see the different work happening within AI in different forms of cancer, lung cancer being just one of them. And of course, both Sectra and the Cure team would be at UKIO. So you get to experience some of our solutions that we talked about today, hands-on, and be able to see AI in practice, touch and feel, and see what those workflows and how seamless it can be from a radiology perspective. Hear a lot of different impact stories from the different sessions in terms of the real-world adoption and what problems in different clinical focus areas are being solved by AI. I know we missed one last question, but I think I can say that a lot of the different modalities of AI, chest CT, X-ray, head CT, all the works would be available for the UKI audience to be able to experience and see. And we've been quite punctual with our panel. Any other questions? Feel free to ask, and we would be happy to sort of answer on chat as well. Any closing remarks from the UKIO team?
All good from our side, thank you.
Thank you so much for this opportunity, and we look forward to meeting you at UKIO. Hopefully this was a good, informative session. We look forward to sharing knowledge and hopefully make this available to the folks that couldn't join in, and hope you learn with our example of what a blueprint of AI adoption and commercialization looks like. Thank you so much. Have a good evening.